What is up, peeps? I'm excited to make this video this morning. It's 10:30. Yeah, it's gonna be great. I have a special surprise for you guys today. It's definitely a surprise. And hopefully you guys will enjoy this as much as I do, because I think this is pretty awesome, honestly. But I'm gonna be reading to you. But today we're doing some psychology, which is gonna be super awesome. But yeah. So I just started in chapter 9, which is a chapter called Lifespan Development, which is very interesting. We're gonna get into this. I've already started the chapter, but I'm gonna restart it since we're reading together here. And it's nice, the sun has come out for sure. But yeah, guys, so I hope you enjoy this reading. This is gonna be pretty interesting, I think, for sure. So I'm excited about doing this. I'm excited about reading this to you guys. Anyway, lifespan development. Don't need the car on right now. How have you changed since childhood? How are you the same? What will your life be like 25 years from now? 50 years from now? Lifespan development studies how you change as well as how you remain the same over the course of your life. Introduction. Welcome to the story of your life. In this chapter, we explore the fascinating tale of how you have grown and developed into the person you are today. We also look at some ideas about who you will grow into tomorrow. Yours is a story of lifespan development, from the start of life to the end. The process of human growth and development is more obvious in infancy and childhood, yet your development is happening this moment and will continue minute by minute for the rest of your life. Who you are today and who you will be in the future depends on a blend of genetics, environment, culture, relationships, and more. As you continue through each phase of your life, you have experienced firsthand much of what is discussed in this chapter. Now consider what psychological science has to say about your physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development from the womb to the tomb. Oh my gosh, they had to be so corny like that. Anyway, what is lifespan development? Learning objectives. By the end of this section, you will be able to define and distinguish between the three domains of development: physical, cognitive, and psychosocial. Those are the three domains of development: physical, cognitive, and psychosocial. Discuss the normative approach to development. Understand the three major issues in development: continuity, and discontinuity, one common course of development, or many unique courses of development, and nature versus nurture. All right, we've heard that term before, probably. My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it when my life began. So is it now I am a man. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. The child is father of the man. I wish my days to be bound, each to each, by natural piety. Wordsworth, 1802. In this poem, William Wordsworth writes, "The child is father of the man." What does this seemingly incongruous statement mean, and what does it have to do with lifespan development? Wordsworth might be suggesting that the person he is as an adult depends largely on the experiences he had in childhood. Consider the following questions. To what extent is the adult you are today influenced by the child you once were? To what extent is a child fundamentally different from the adult he grows up to be? These are the types of questions developmental psychologists try to answer. By studying how humans change and grow from conception through childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and death, they view development as a lifelong process that can be studied scientifically across three developmental domains: physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development. Physical development involves growth and changes in the body and brain, the senses, motor skills, and health and wellness. Cognitive development involves learning, attention, memory, language, thinking, reasoning, and creativity. Psychosocial development involves emotions, personality, and social relationships. We refer to these domains throughout the chapter. Connect the concepts. Here's a little section that they added in here, connect the concepts. You've learned about a variety of research methods used by psychologists. Developmental psychologists use many of these approaches in order to better understand how individuals change mentally and physically over time. These methods include naturalistic observations, case studies, surveys, and experiments, among others. Naturalistic observations involve observing behavior in its natural context. A developmental psychologist might observe how children behave on a playground, at a daycare center, or in the child's own home. While this research approach provides a glimpse into how children behave in their natural settings, researchers have very little control over the types and/or frequencies of displayed behavior. In a case study, developmental psychologists collect a great detail of information from one individual in order to better understand physical and psychological changes over the lifespan. This particular approach is an excellent way to better understand individuals who are exceptional in some way, but it is especially prone to researcher bias in interpretation, and it is difficult to generalize conclusions to the larger population. In one classic example of this research method being applied to a study of lifespan development, Sigmund Freud analyzed the development of a child known as Little Hans. Freud's findings helped inform his theories of psychosexual development in children, which you will learn about later in this chapter. Jeannie, the subject of a case, Jeannie, I forget her last name, but she was neglected her whole life, basically, growing up. Never allowed to leave her room. She was never taught to speak or, anything, or read or anything. She was strapped and chained to her room until she was like 13 years old, and she was discovered and rescued. Very sad case of Jeannie. Jeannie, the subject of a case study discussed in the chapter on thinking and intelligence, provides another example of how psychologists examine developmental milestones through detailed research on a single individual. In Jeannie's case, her neglectful and abusive upbringing led to her being unable to speak until at age 13 she was removed from that harmful environment. As she learned to use language, psychologists were able to compare how her language acquisition abilities differed when occurring in her late-stage development compared to the typical acquisition of those skills during the ages of infancy through early childhood. The survey method asks individuals to self-report important information about their thoughts, experiences, and beliefs. This particular method can provide large amounts of information in relatively short amounts of time. However, validity of data collected in this way relies on honest self-reporting, and the data is relatively shallow when compared to the depth of information collected in a case study. An example of comprehensive survey was the research done by Ruth W. Howard. In 1934, she obtained her doctorate by surveying 229 sets of triplets. That's a lot of triplets. The most comprehensive research of triplets completed at the time. That's a mail truck speeding down the road. This pioneering woman was also the first African American woman to earn a PhD in psychology. Interesting. Experiments involve significant control over extraneous variables and manipulation of the independent variable. As such, experimental research allows developmental psychologists to make causal statements about certain variables that are important for the developmental process. Because experimental research must occur in a controlled environment, researchers must be cautious about whether behaviors observed in the laboratory translate to an individual's natural environment. Later in this chapter, you will learn about several experiments in which toddlers and young children observe scenes or actions so that researchers can determine at what age specific cognitive abilities develop. For example, children may observe a quantity of liquid poured from a short, fat glass into a tall, skinny glass. As the experimenters question the children about what occurred, the subject's answers help psychologists understand at what age a child begins to comprehend that the volume of liquid remained the same although the shapes of the containers differ. Across three domains, physical, cognitive, and psychosocial, the normative approach to development is also discussed. This approach asks, what is normal development? In the early decades of the 20th century, normative psychologists studied large numbers of children at various ages to determine norms of when most children reach specific developmental milestones in each of the three domains. Although children develop at slightly different rates, we could use these age-related averages as general guidelines to compare children with same-age peers to determine the approximate ages they should reach specific normative events called developmental milestones, e.g. crawling, walking, writing, dressing, naming colors, speaking in sentences, and starting puberty. Not all normative events are universal, meaning they are not experienced by all individuals across all cultures. Biological milestones such as puberty tend to be universal, but social milestones such as the age when children begin formal schooling are not necessarily universal. Instead, of course, because not every kid goes to school, and school isn't available to every kid, of course. Instead, they affect most individuals in a particular culture. For example, in developed countries, children begin school around 5 or 6 years old, but in developing countries, like developed versus developing, but in developing countries like Nigeria, children often enter school at an advanced age, if at all. To better understand the normative approach, imagine two mothers, Louisa and Kimberly, who are close friends and have children around the same age. Louisa's daughter is 14 months old and Kimberly's son is 12 months old. According to the normative approach, the average age a child starts to walk is 12 months. However, at 14 months, Louisa's daughter still isn't walking. She tells Kimberly she is worried that something might be wrong with her baby. Kimberly is surprised because her son started walking when he was only 10 months old. Should Louisa be worried? Should she be concerned if her daughter is not walking by 15 or 18 months? Yes, absolutely. The kid's never going to walk. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Issues in developmental psychology. There are many different theoretical approaches regarding human development. As we evaluate them in this chapter, recall that developmental psychology focuses on how people change, and keep in mind that all approaches that we present in this chapter address questions of change. Is the change smooth or uneven, continuous versus discontinuous? Is this pattern of change the same for everyone, or are there many different patterns of change, one course of development versus many courses? How do genetics and environment interact to influence development? Nature versus nurture. Is development continuous or discontinuous? Continuous development views development as a cumulative process, gradually improving on existing skills. With this type of development, there is gradual change. Consider, for example, a child's physical growth, adding inches to height year by year. In contrast, theorists who view development as discontinuous believe that development takes place in unique stages. It occurs at specific times or ages. With this type of development, the change is more sudden, such as an infant's ability to conceive object permanence. Oh yeah, right. And then it shows a little graph here. It says the concept of continuous development can be visualized as a smooth slope of progression, whereas discontinuous development sees growth in more discrete stages. Of course, it's very simple, Is there one course of development or many? Is development essentially the same or universal for all children, i.e. there is one course of development? I don't know why I have to explain that. It's so dumb. I get what that means. Of course, who wouldn't? Sorry. Or does development follow a different course for each child, depending on the child's specific genetics and environment? I.e., there are many courses of development. Do people across the world share more similarities or more differences in their development? How much do culture and genetics influence a child's behavior? Stage theories hold that the sequence of development is universal. For example, in cross-cultural studies of language development, children from around the world reach language milestones in a similar sequence. Infants in all cultures coo before they babble. They begin babbling at about the same age and utter their first word around 12 months old. Yet we live in diverse contexts that have a unique effect on each of us. For example, researchers once believed that motor development follows one course for all children regardless of culture. Wrong. However, child care practices vary by culture, and different practices have been found to accelerate or inhibit achievement of developmental milestones such as sitting, crawling, and walking. For instance, let's look at the Ashe Society in Paraguay. They spend a significant amount of time foraging in forests. While foraging, Ashe mothers carry their young children, rarely putting them down in order to protect them from getting hurt in the forest. Consequently, their children walk much later. They walk around 23 to 25 months old, in comparison to infants in Western cultures who begin to walk around 12 months old. However, as Ashe children become older, Ashe, it's A-C-H-E with a little apostrophe over Ashe, Ashe. As Ashe children become older, they are allowed more freedom to move about, and by about age 9, their motor skills surpass those of U.S. children of the same age. Ashe children are able to climb trees up to 25 feet tall and use machetes to chop their way through forests. Some tough kids, man. As you can see, our development is influenced by multiple contexts. I want my children to be raised in Ashe, right? As you can see, our development is influenced by multiple contexts. So the timing of basic motor functions may vary across cultures. However, the functions themselves are present in all societies. There's two pictures. One picture is kids with life. Yeah, I ain't gonna go into it. Forget that. How do nature and nurture influence development? Are we who we are because of nature, biology, and genetics? Or are we who we are because of nurture, our environment, and culture? This long-standing question is known in psychology as the nature versus nurture debate. Well, I don't understand why it's really a debate. It seeks to understand how our personalities and traits are the product of our genetic makeup and biological factors, and how they are shaped by our environment, including our guardians, peers, and culture. For instance, why do biological children sometimes act like their parents? Is it because of genetics, or because of early childhood environment? And what is it because of genetics or because of early childhood environment and what the child has learned from the parents? What about children who are adopted? Are they more like their biological families, or more like their adoptive families? And how can siblings from the same family be so different? We are all born with specific genetic traits inherited from our parents, such as eye color, height, and certain personality traits. Beyond our basic genotype, however, there is a deep interaction between our genes and our environment. Our unique experiences in our environment influence whether and how particular traits are expressed, and at the same time, our genes influence how we interact with our environment. This chapter will show that there is a reciprocal interaction between nature and nurture, as they both shape who we become, but the debate continues as to the relative contributions of each. Just realized, so these videos where I read to you guys, these are basically advertisements for college, because if you go to college, you can learn this. You ain't getting the whole full story here. I ain't reading the whole book to you, you know? Anyway, dig deeper. The achievement gap. Okay, this is going to be interesting. I feel some interesting thoughts coming. The achievement gap. How does socioeconomic status affect development? The achievement gap refers to the persistent difference in grades, test scores, and graduation rates that exist among students of different ethnicities, races, and in certain subjects, genders. Research suggests that these achievement gaps are strongly influenced by differences in socioeconomic factors that exist among the families of these children. While the researchers acknowledge that programs aimed at reducing such socioeconomic discrepancies would likely aid in equalizing the aptitude and performance of children from different backgrounds. Let's read that again. While the researchers acknowledge that programs aimed at reducing such socioeconomic discrepancies would likely aid in equalizing the aptitude and performance of children from different backgrounds, they recognize that such large-scale interventions would be difficult to achieve. Therefore, it is recommended that programs aimed at fostering aptitude and achievement among disadvantaged children may be the best option for dealing with issues related to academic achievement gaps. Children from low-income households perform significantly more poorly than their middle and high-income peers on a number of educational variables. They have significantly lower standardized test scores, graduation rates, and college entrance rates, and they have much higher school dropout rates. Poor kids. There have been attempts to correct the achievement gap through state and federal legislature, but what if the problems start before the children even enter school? Good question. Psychologists Betty Hart and Todd Risley spent their careers looking at early language ability and progression of children in various income levels. In one longitudinal study, they found that although all the parents in the study engaged and interacted with their children, middle and high income parents interacted with their children differently than low income parents. After analyzing 1,300 hours of parent-child interactions, the researchers found that middle and high income parents talk to their children significantly more, starting when the children are infants. By 3 years old, high-income children knew almost double the number of words known by their low-income counterparts, and they had heard an estimated total of 30 million more words than the low-income counterparts. And the gaps only become more pronounced. 30 million more words. That's not 30 million more unique words. That's too many words. We don't know that many words. Yeah. And the gaps only become more pronounced. Before entering kindergarten, high-income children score 60% higher on achievement tests than their low-income peers. There are solutions to this problem. At the University of Chicago, experts are working with low-income families, visiting them at their homes and encouraging them to speak more to their children on a daily and hourly basis. Other experts are designing preschools in which students from diverse economic backgrounds are placed in the same classroom. In this research, low-income children made significant gains in their language development, likely as a result of attending the specialized preschool. What other methods or interventions could be used to decrease the achievement gap? What types of activities could be implemented to help the children of your community or a neighboring community? So that's the end of 9.1. Next is 9.2, lifespan theories. Gets a little interesting here. You guys are going to have to read this on your own at some point. Find it and read it if you're interested and you really want to read it, because I'm probably not going to be making a video. That could change, I might, but I don't think I'm going to, because I think by the time I read this, I'm going to be reading it on my own, you know. And I'll make another video. I'll make more videos reading psychology, but at the moment, this is it for today, you know. So, and I'm not going to read the entire chapter to you guys, of course. Well, I mean, I'm just not. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the reading today. I hope you guys learned something new. I hope this has actually sparked some thoughts in your brains, in your head brain. I hope you are thinking about things, and I don't know, I hope your wheels are turning. It's a beautiful, peaceful day. Here, I'm going to show you what everything looks like from my perspective. Sitting out here, you know. You can hear the bugs out there. Nice, beautiful tree here. Parking lot to my left. The school's over to my left. You see, over there. I got class soon, so I'm going to be getting to class just a little bit, you know. But thanks for watching, you guys. I feel like this is a much more digestible video. For some reason, there's something, it's so weird. There's something about psychology when you read about it, when you learn about it, something happens. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just like I feel smart because I'm learning about it, but I noticed this my first day of class with my psychology professor. I just noticed this different headspace we were in, a different dimension we felt like being in. I just felt like it was in a different space. It was very interesting. It was interactive. I could feel the energy of my teacher's third eye. Anyway, that, I don't know, that you guys might not really understand that, but I could feel it. I could feel the interest. It was interesting, and it was good though. It was good. They say that your third eye is right here, and they say that is like a center in your, that's like a center for like intuition and like understanding things. It's like how you relate to people, what you're putting out, what you're taking in, how you interpret everything right there, kind of. But it's just like, that's I think there's some science to it. I think it's actually true to a certain extent, but it's basically a belief system. People believe that, the chakra system. But I think there's some validity to it, but you know, I'm not going too far into it. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys have a sensational day, and I'm super excited for the future at all costs. Anyway, talk to you later.